This message is for, it will be in Spanish language. Gracias a todos por atender. Si desean escuchar esta presentación en español, lo pueden hacer yendo a su pantalla y hacia abajo en el lado derecho van a ver un emblema que parece como un mundo y dice Interpretation. En ese emblema puede oprimirlo y ahí le da la opción de escoger el lenguaje en español. Y al hacer eso podrá escuchar la presentación en español. También le haremos disponible la presentación que se va a dar hoy en español en los slides. O sea, el PowerPoint que se va a hacer hoy se lo vamos a hacer disponible en el chat para que puedan seguir con nosotros. So, Marissa, if you can provide that Spanish language link, that would be great. And I'm going off camera now.
Good evening. Before I say anything else, I want to thank you for participating in this event. Your voice and input is critical to making the arts and culture goal of the LA River Master Plan successful and representative of Southeast LA. In the end, this plan has to be something that the community can embrace. I say that because my greatest hope for this plan is that the LA River becomes an asset to the community. I mean, in particular, to the people who live here now. Too many times, economic development has been a tool for displacing residents. We can't and won't have that here. That's why it is important that the people from the SELA communities along the LA River define what we will do here. That has been our intention all along. We have an arts and culture goal in this plan because we know that there is a rich artistic and cultural community living in SELA today. Painters, performers, musicians, all our cultural workers. We are asking you to help us develop our plan. Yes, we want people from outside our neighborhoods to come and witness our culture. I know we can do that without them taking over our neighborhoods and without them appropriating our culture. It will be hard work, and that is why we've invited you here. We're asking for your help. Thank you for being here tonight. We have some great information to share with you. Next, I would like to introduce Denali Perez Leon, Director of Business Development for the Latinas Art Foundation in Paramount.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Denali Perez Leon, and I'm with the Latinas Art Foundation. The Latinas Art Foundation is dedicated to the appreciation of the Latino fine arts and culture. It is our goal to empower women and young girls, as well as to provide the community with education and exposure to the Latino arts and culture. The foundation was founded by my mother, Lourdes Perez. She and her 8 siblings were unfortunate to have the opportunities and resources where they can develop their artistic skills and learn about cultural education. In their family, in their pueblo, Huanusco, Zacatecas, they were known as the poorest of the poor. But a teacher was the one who helped them out. As she watched us, her children here, grow up in SELA, she saw herself and all the children in our neighborhood and schools. And that's when she knew that she had to create something in our own neighborhood. She saw that children who had so much talent and wanted to express themselves, so she created the Latinas Art Foundation. Our program has dance and art education, and along with yearly cultural festivals. They provide a physical space, an emotional, safe environment. It helps students build positive and long-term relationships and exposes them to new experiences and opportunities. They set a high expectation for individual responsibility. The Latinas Art Foundation encourages the involvement of critical thinking, decision-making, stretching the imagination, and opening new perspectives through traditional dance, music, and cultural arts. Cultural arts simultaneously provides a link to the past. It connects us and our identity, and it's a powerful platform for people of color of today. The SELA community is a special and unique community. Although it's largely populated, we create family units within friends, within our neighborhoods, members of groups and organizations. Here we have created our art family. They become our second family. The LA River Master Plan can provide a connection between cities and regions. It's a form and a way to connect with members of our family, with our friends, and our community. With the improvements made to the LA River, the Latinas Art Foundation can create programs for our community and our members to take a deeper appreciation to the nature while expressing ourselves through art. It can allow artists to find and express a voice by capturing the beauty of nature in our own hometown. It can be a form of storytelling for future generations. Using the LA River and reutilizing it in a different form can allow our community and the earth to be seen as one, just as our ancestors had done in the past. By being engaged in the LA Master Plan, it can become a reflection of our community. Thank you again for joining us in this webinar tonight. We hope that you will find it informative, and we hope that you will participate by asking questions in the Q&A function.
Thank you so much, Donnelly, for those remarks. Just want to express that while we recognize that all the goals of the master plan are interconnected, the intent of this webinar is to highlight goal 5 of the master plan that looks to embrace and enhance opportunities for arts and culture. To get a presentation from the county on this goal and to give direction on how to provide comments. And we'll also have some time for Q&A using the webinar function. So please use the Q&A function throughout the presentation as your questions arise as you're seeing the slides. With that, I'd like to introduce Genevieve Osmena of Public Works to lead us through the presentation of Goal 5. Genevieve.
Thank you, Miguel, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on your evening tonight. I want to thank the speaker and the City of Southgate for having us here for this very important discussion. Again, my name is Genevieve Osmena from LA County Public Works, and I oversee the project team managing the LA River Master Plan and the development of the plan over the last couple of years. And I also want to mention that Carolina Hernandez is also here from the county Public Works overseeing long-term planning for the flood control district, and will both be available later on after the material for any discussion or Q&A. First off, before I hand it over to our team to walk us through the information tonight, I did want to announce, and hopefully many of you on the call maybe have heard already, that the county has officially extended the public review comment period for both the LA River Master Plan document, which is the document that you will be hearing about tonight with a focus on our Goal 5, art and culture goal. But we have also extended the public comment period for the CEQA Programmatic Environmental Impact Report document, also known as the PEIR. So that document is also available and right now open for public review. And I know there may be some confusion, or often they're interchanged, but we will be providing the links and the information for those of you who want to access those two documents. Again, the plan, if you want to see the strategies and the tools and the recommendations for improvements and projects and programs, you would go to the plan. If you want to go and see the environmental impacts of those potential improvements, you would go to the PEIR document. So again, thank you so much for having us here tonight. And right now, I would like to now introduce Mark Hanna from Geosyntec and Jessica Henson from Owen to help walk us through the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Genevieve. Good evening. My name is Jessica, and I'm joined by Mark Hanna, and we're going to step through some specific information about arts and culture this evening, and really want to thank everyone for the involvement and the excitement around this topic. I think it's very important to the plan overall. Many of you know, but about 1 million people live within a 1-mile radius of the river, and about 1/4 of all Californians. So the significance of the river is really important to all of us. During a large storm event, as many of you also know, large water flows go through the river up to 100,000 CFS during 1% storm event. So how do we start to balance the social and realities, social needs and realities along the river is a big driver of the master plan. Specifically to arts and culture, the Los Angeles River has long been a place for artists to gather, whether for collaborative art, for community art and events like the SELA Arts Festival, which I know many of you have probably attended in the past. Other events that have taken advantage of the geography of the LA River for different events that pop-up events or ephemeral events like Play the LA River or Current, which was another evening ephemeral art along the river. Many of you might have seen things like the River Cats, different environmental art that has happened along the river and really expressing different communities and the impact of how they've related to the river. We also see organizations throughout the communities like Turnaround Arts or others that are really engaging children and youth in arts. And part of the goal really here to understand how different groups can integrate and appreciate and understand the Los Angeles River is one of the really exciting things about the arts and culture goal of the master plan.
Great, thanks, Jessica. And as Miguel mentioned, the master plan does cover 9 different goals. We're here to talk about the arts and culture. However, the LA River itself is 51 miles long and is part of a 834 square mile watershed. So diverse issues, diverse arts, diverse cultures, and diverse shapes and forms. So this is a shot of the LA River as it moves from mile 51 in Canoga Park all the way through Sepulveda Basin and down to River Mile 0 at the mouth in Long Beach. It also passes through 17 cities, 23 City of Los Angeles neighborhoods, and 4 unincorporated communities. So again, a diverse populace and diverse governance structure as well. Getting to this point, right, this is not the first study of its kind, and it's actually standing on the shoulders of over 140 planning documents that have come before the LA River Master Plan. So this is built along a robust literature review, including current plans and projects that maybe some of you are familiar with, such as the Lower Los Angeles River Revitalization Plan, shown in the bright green colors on the lower part of the river here. So these are some overlays coming from other planning efforts that are going on currently. To get to this point, we've actually had a very robust and kind of triangulated effort to bring ideas together, a solid public engagement process up and down the river for over 2 years. We had a 41-member steering committee that covered the different geographies and different issues around the watershed. And then, of course, the technical and design team from Public Works and the consultant teams, Jessica and myself. As I mentioned, this solid engagement program, we had 13 different meetings up and down the river with over 1,300 participants live, nearly 1 million digital ad impressions, including we had a first ever LA River focused youth summit with over 800 participants. So there's been a very long and continuous process where we get to go back and talk to the people multiple times as the plan gets developed. And you can see here that we've had people not only coming from very distinct communities along the river, but all the way around the watershed and a few that are even in Ventura County and maybe out in the middle of Santa Monica Bay. And to actually amplify the public engagement process that we went through, we funded and worked with other community partners to actually bring their communities back into the process. In addition, we've wanted to make sure that we were able to reach out to children. So we've created a kids activity book, both in English and in Spanish, and those are downloadable from the website. We had a hyper local ad campaign to make sure that we reached people that maybe weren't receiving the web blast or the email blast. And then online, you can download an at-a-glance fact sheet and some other documents that can get you through the LA River Master Plan in different ways. And through all of that, we ended up with a vision, working with our steering committee and the local and the communities around the river, talking about a 51-mile connected public open space, an integral part of daily life in LA County, enjoying the outdoors, using it to get across town, and also understanding the infrastructure that allows us to live in these communities and safely from flood risk. And from that vision, we now have these 9 goals, and these goals all roll up towards that vision, and they include reducing flood risk and supporting healthy ecosystems. And in the middle here, you can see that we have a goal that's really focused on embracing and enhancing opportunities for arts and culture.
So each of the goals in the master plan is supported by a series of actions and methods, which are the tangible ways to achieve those goals. And you can actually dig into these in a lot of detail in the plan. And like we mentioned before, tonight we really wanted to draw special focus to goal 5, which is about embracing and enhancing opportunities for arts and culture. And so within that goal, there are 5 actions that really are focused on how do we have place-based, community-driven, reflective of the cultural diversity of the county, arts and culture, but that it's also comprehensive, 51-mile, globally significant. How do we activate those cultural assets that are already in communities along the LA River? How do we make sure that artists are integrated, cultural organizations, community members in those ongoing planning processes? So after the plan is complete and projects start to go online, how do people get invested in the project development moving into the future? How can we galvanize and activate the LA River cultural identity through arts and culture? And then number 5 here, which is particularly important, how can we streamline permitting processes for artwork and cultural activities along the river, which unfortunately has long stood in the way in the connections between artists and the river, and how to move between the two. So what you can explore in the plan is this goal 5, and each of those methods that I just mentioned are expressed in more detail. So there's an explanation of why that matters, and then also a specific list of methods. And so this has been worked with many community members, but also the steering committee and the Los Angeles County Department of Arts and Culture to really think creatively about how some of these things might come to fruition. There's also some spotlight case studies in the master plan where we've looked at other communities. So like, for example, this is the Seattle Art Plan. And what are some other communities across the country doing to really tie their infrastructure, their communities, and artistic opportunities and cultural opportunities together? So you can explore that in the plan. All of the projects and ideas in the plan really build off of, if you look at this diagram, off a foundation of community needs. So whatever goal it is, whether it's flood risk or arts and culture or water quality or ecosystems, you can see that we're really feeding community needs through the goals. Then we have different opportunities at specific sites, design ideas through a kit of parts, and then a series of common elements along the river. And this really all becomes part of building through this community engagement process to our future reimagined river. In order to develop the LA River Master Plan, understanding 51 miles of the LA River is no simple task. So one of the things that we developed to measure the river in the plan is a series of data rulers, we call them. And this is a linearized version of the river. And what this allows is if you take something like park need throughout Los Angeles County, areas in red are areas with high need, areas in orange and yellow being high and moderate. We can start to highlight the areas around the river and really understand some of those areas of highest need. What's been useful in the master plan to understanding these community needs is we can start to compare different categories. So example here is, what if we look at pollution or issues like the Callan virus screen and relate them to park need? What areas along the LA River start to really light up relative to some of the other community needs here? We've done this for over 200 different data sets to understand communities up and down the river. And specifically, if we look at, say, communities, arts, and culture, if you're really interested in some of the data and the plan behind this, there is art assets mapping across the county. And this starts to help us form a foundation of understanding what we currently have in the county. And I will say that what assets are located in a community is often community-based, like what a community values. And so moving into the future, what you saw in those actions is how do we make this data set even more robust than it already is? And that's a really important action in the master plan, to take this data that already exists as art assets, but to understand for each local community along the river what those local art assets are as very specifically. From all the different data sets that have been brought together, each of the goals then has a mapping of community needs, where either there is a high population and so there is a higher need for assets, or where there's a lower density of assets available. So specifically, if we look at arts and culture, in this map, you can see areas in red are areas that have a higher need for investment in some of these areas. And that does not mean that there isn't existing awesome arts and culture in those communities. In fact, in some of the communities, there might be incredible existing arts and culture assets. But how do we support those? And how can local communities utilize the resources of the LA River Master Plan to really tie those local artists to things happening along the river is really critical. In terms of the idea of locating new projects along the river, we really are trying to understand where that need is, the needs for investment, and where it really overlays with opportunity. The other thing that's important is making sure that there's an equitable cadence along all 51 miles of the river. So over the last 3 years, the steering committee and different people at community meetings and on surveys have helped develop feedback to develop a site series along the Los Angeles River. So some of these projects are already ongoing projects that you see like in gray, projects from other planning efforts that Mark mentioned we've pulled forward, and then filling in the gaps. So where there might have been a stretch of the river that wasn't getting a lot of attention historically, helping to fill that in with projects of all scales. So small projects, medium projects, large projects, and making sure that there's equity along the 51 miles. There's not a solution that works for every mile of the Los Angeles River. So recognizing that different communities have different needs and also maybe have different desires is a really important part of the plan. So there are 6 high-level categories of different strategies, and some of them are as simple as trails and access or channel modifications. Some of them would be like adjacent parkland, and others develop some infrastructural strategies to take pressure off of the channel or to connect communities across the channel. Each of these can support different ecosystems and different community needs. And then at the smaller, finer grain, it's really critical that different amenities along the river are incorporated, whether that be a restroom or a drinking fountain, or whether that be a continuous lighting scenario so that we can all get out and enjoy the river. This is actually one of the most interesting opportunities to make sure that we're always infusing local community artists and culture. So these projects that have a regular cadence along the river can become really wonderful canvases for community expression along the 51 miles, which is something championed in the plan. Here you can see, I mean, these are just totally placeholders, and I know that the communities along the LA River are going to come up with really wonderful ways to express community identity. But you can imagine that some of the improvements along the river will have permanent or temporary art installations that can become a part of our life along the river. The last thing I'll say here is that for each section of the river, for each frame along the 51 miles, you can explore more about the sites that are nearby a neighborhood for you. So some of you that might be familiar with, say, like the SELA Cultural Center, which is an ongoing planned project here near the Rio Hondo confluence, you can explore where some of those projects are located, or say like the urban orchard, which is up here closer to River Mile 13. And you can kind of pour through the pages to see where those things are located. All of this comes together into 51 miles of connected open space. There's over 2,300 acres of primarily publicly owned land in the Los Angeles River right-of-way. And we think that's an awesome opportunity to really create this 51-mile corridor of arts and culture for the 1 million people that live within a mile of the river.
So as you can tell, Jessica and I could talk for hours about this master plan, and we're really only digging into one goal here. But if you're interested in learning more about it, obviously you go to the website, but we have a video on how to use the LA River Master Plan. It's very informative, and it also is in English and in Spanish, so you can watch it in bilingual formats, and to really get an in-depth insight into what is in the actual documents themselves. And here they are, they're on the website now. We've got the main volume of the master plan, both in English and Spanish, and then the technical appendices, including the design guideline, the kids activity book, and the fact sheets that we've been describing before. And as Genevieve had mentioned at the beginning, the CEQA process, which is the Programmatic Environmental Impact Report, CEQA stands for the California Environmental Quality Act, is really an action that the county needs to look at when they're going to adopt a plan or perform a project to see what those environmental impacts are. And so that scoping period occurred in 2020, and those draft documents are open for public review through May of this year. If you're really interested, and Genevieve, you did a very good job of describing this, so I really don't need to spend any time on this, but there are some documents that show, if you're really interested in one part of the plan or the environmental impacts, that we can direct you to those through some of these how-to documents. And really, we're interested in getting comments regarding arts and culture, but all of the goals and the actions and what are developed and shown in the LA River Master Plan. And you can go to the document, to the website, you can download any of the documents, and you can actually review them online as well without downloading them. And there's a very simple format to submitting your comments. And I believe we'll be showing how that process works in a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica and Mark, for the presentation. Now I'd like to invite Dakota Mcmahan, Executive Director of Budding Artists, for some remarks. Dakota?
Good afternoon. My name is Dakota Mcmahan, and I am a Lynnwood native who has spent much of my formative years growing in the communities of Lynnwood, Compton, and Watts. I feel extremely fortunate to have experienced the beauty, warmth, and intellectual prowess that comes from developing one's artistry. As a classically trained pianist who got my start as a teenager at the Watts Towers Art Center and the CalArts Community Arts Partnership piano program, I learned not only about music theory, performance, and music history. I learned and developed countless life skills such as perseverance, creativity of thought, collaboration with others, and a willingness for experimentation and self-expression. As a first-generation college grad, I have the pleasure of working in the field of academic medicine, and I am the founder of a local Lynnwood-based arts education nonprofit called Budding Artists. Budding Artists was conceptualized between myself and my friend Sarah Tanberg out of a desire to close equity gaps as artivists. This is accomplished by providing high quality arts education in Black and Brown communities where there is limited to zero access to it, focusing our efforts on young children who are the dreamers, thought leaders, and change makers for the future. Like myself, our team consists of many local individuals who have been greatly impacted by the arts and want to give back to our community by ensuring these process-based art experiences are provided at no cost to the children and parents who participate in our programming. Our spark and drive is to reimagine and build arts education in our homes, for our neighbors, in our community, and abroad. The support we've received from the children we have the pleasure of serving, the parents, and other community members has been tremendous and reaffirms that our work is both necessary and welcome. It is for us, by us. The LA River Master Plan and arts and culture component of this project is vital to the Southeast Los Angeles community. Our community is rich in talent and expertise. In fact, we have board members from Linwood and Compton who've attended Ivy League schools such as Amherst and Harvard. Our community is endowed with accomplished creatives and thought leaders from various disciplines. Yet it often feels we are all too often forgotten about when thinking of the general arts and culture landscape in Los Angeles. It feels that we've been overlooked and effectively outsourced. We have no large major museums, art councils, and very limited funded public art. The list goes on. The beauty of the LA River Master Plan arts and culture component of this project is that it not only will edify the existing community, it will help galvanize what I consider to be the Renaissance period of SELA arts and culture, which has been in progress for the past few years as it continues to advance through community members, grassroots nonprofits, and various artist collectives. Participating in the implementation of this project by providing public comment not only promotes art activism in our community, it will act as an amplified voice, paving the way for future generations to have the opportunity to explore, imagine, and create, all connected by the vibrant tides of the river. Thank you.
Thank you, Dakota, for your remarks. I wanted to highlight two things. One is we wanted Donna Lee and Dakota to make statements because we wanted to show to our attendees and on this platform say that we have organizations, nonprofits that are dedicated to the arts and culture that are homegrown in Southeast LA for Southeast LA. And so wanted to do that. And we're also very cognizant that there are community-based organizations, there's collaborations, coalitions, entities, groups like the Artists Guild, entities like Metzley Project. We know you're out there and we value you and certainly want to hear, and the county wants to hear your comments as individuals, as collectives, because your opinions do matter, and we're going to get into the Q&A. I did want to share really quick the option of using the portal that the county has to make your comments. So it's I think it's as simple as going to LARivermasterplan.org, scrolling down a little bit. Don't be scared of it. It's just a quick link. It takes you over to the plan, and if you're planning to do so in English, and the interpreter is interpreting for others, if they wanted to do it in Spanish, it's also there. You can download the PDF, take your time. As you heard, there's an extension, read it thoroughly, or you can just view it online, review and comment. It takes you to the plan itself. What it asks for as required fields are the page number and the comment itself. But it'd be very helpful if you completed the paragraph number of the page. Your first name, last name, organization, email, and zip code are, again, they're not mandatory, but if they'd like to follow up with you, it'd be great if you provided that information. So it's as simple as that. I'll do what's required. Let's say it's page 23. My comment is looking good. And I submit my form, and you get an immediate confirmation on the screen that says your comments have been received. And that's your confirmation. You're not going to get an email. And if you wanted to go ahead and submit another comment, you can just refresh the page and enter as many comments as you like. You might think, oh, I forgot something else. Just go ahead and come back, share that link with others. So I wanted to make sure people knew that, how easy it was to do so. Carolina Hernandez of Public Works wanted to make a couple comments, and then we'll get into the Q&A. Carolina?
Thank you, Miguel. I really appreciate that. And good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Carolina Hernandez, and I just wanted to come and talk to you. I am responsible for integrated water resources planning on behalf of the Los Angeles County Flood Control District at LA County Public Works. And I really just, again, wanted to thank Speaker Rendon and the City of Southgate for giving the county this opportunity to share information on the LA River Master Plan, and really mostly for all of you that are here listening to be here and to spend your evening with us and to hear and learn more about the plan. This plan really does seek to promote community expression while still creating a unified identity for the river. Let's have a river where artists, musicians, teachers, and our youth can gather to share, learn, and promote cultural diversity. We really are looking forward to hearing your voices. So thank you, Miguel, for taking us through that. So please go to our website, as he showed you, and to review the draft and share your thoughts. We're really hopeful that together we can ensure that this critical piece of infrastructure will evolve to meet the needs of all. So thank you again, Miguel.
Thank you, Carolina. And so now we're going to switch over to grid view, and I'd like to invite Jessica back on screen, Mark and Genevieve. Dakota and Danalia, if you're still available, I'd like to invite you back on screen too. There's some questions. We have a lively, some good questions here from folks. Marissa, if I can ask you to also join us and help us with some of the questions, and I can help moderate. But there's some good questions from Edlin, from Vicky, Barbara. So Marissa.
All right, let's start. I know there was a question for Dakota and Donna Lee. This is coming from Tilly Hinton. What's one action from the plan that you're most excited about, and what is in or missing from the plan that worries you?
I can go first. What I'm really excited about is that there's going to be an actual platform or a location where we can just easily go and create art, meet up with someone, do projects together. But what I am kind of nervous about is safety. For example, my husband, he's a bike rider, so he bikes down the LA River, and there's always problems going on there. Another thing is growing up, my dad and my mom only had one car. So my dad would bike ride to work. So we used to live in Maywood, and he would go all the way to downtown LA. And safety, that's kind of like one thing. There's gonna be women, children, families hanging out. So lighting, maybe at night. So that's what I feel would be needed.
Thank you, Danalie. Dakota, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely echo some of Danali's comments, in particular safety. I would have liked to see that addressed in the master plan. Hopefully it can be in the future. And one of the things I am most excited about is our organization really does focus a lot on STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So having other public open spaces where we can create and learn more about our local ecosystem is something that really does excite me about the plan.
Thank you, Dakota. Marissa, next question.
So our next question is from Barbara Paley. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. What falls into the category of site-based projects generally and specifically to arts and culture?
Yeah, who wants to take that on first?
Take that one on. So a site-based project is any project along the LA River that might be a single site sort of functioning alone. And the thing that I think is really important to remember about the master plan that is that there's no prescriptive projects that are said like, this is the project that this community must do. And so it's intended to be a framework of information that can empower local communities to make decisions for what projects are right for their community. And so there's the community needs information, and then there are sites that have been identified as opportunities, and they might be identified as opportunities because they're publicly owned, or for another reason they make sense as a potential future site along the Los Angeles River. But there is not a specific assigned project to those sites unless another ongoing project has already defined that site's project goal. And so specifically, there's not like saying like it has to be this here. Generally speaking, though, the way that the design guidelines for the master plan are set up is that arts and culture get baked in at the beginning of all the community processes. So unfortunately, historically, a lot of projects got to a certain point and then they're like, okay, let's engage, local artists and local culture. Rather, that situation needs to be entirely reversed. The community voices first and the arts and culture embedded at the beginning. And so really it's not, the plan is not saying it will be this at this location, but rather it's saying, let's enter into community conversation about what's possible for these sites.
Thank you, Jessica. Next question, Marissa.
So the next question is from Jen Mejia, and she says, excited for Action 5 or 5.5 to streamline permitting for activities. Will the public be able to get these permits, or is it meant just for your community partners? And she references 5.2.2, which I think is an action in the plan. So and also asked the question, who is considered community partners?
Thank you, Marissa. That's a great question. Genevieve, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that is a great question. And that's one thing we really hope we get to hit the ground running on, streamlining that permitting. So right now, anyone really can come to the county and apply for a flood permit. And we have, a variety of different types of permits, from access to, where it's just accessing it and doing an activity that would just need to be reviewed and approved by the county to making sure it's safe and appropriate, all the way to some very extensive, activities like construction and installation and maintenance type of things. So it's a little bit onerous for, I think, the types of activities that we're talking about here in Goal 5 with, having artist events and celebratory and cultural type of events. So we really are looking to come up with maybe a different kind of path so that they're not in the same bucket of like the big construction projects or the maintenance activities, and that we have a little bit more of an appropriate checklist for those types of activities and can make it a little bit easier, faster, cheaper. And it is open to when we say community partners, we actually are not, we have an implementation matrix and we say community partners that helps project proponents reach out to folks to partner and collaborate. But we really want residents, local school groups, community groups to really feel like they have access to be able to engage in activities and projects and programs along the river. So it's really open to everyone. And so this book, the master plan, is hoping to provide those resources for the whole spectrum of individuals or groups or agencies that want to engage with us. I don't know if Mark maybe might actually have anything else to add. Hopefully that helps.
I have a follow-up question, but go ahead, Mark.
Just the community partners, as we called out, were really folks that worked closely with Public Works and the consultant team to help amplify the public engagement program. And it included Las Fotos, East Yards, FOLAR, and they would actually carry surveys and get the word out during when the development of the master plan was going on. So it was really, we called them community partners, and it was a community partner program, but it was really 10 distinct environmental and community engagement groups that worked closely with the team.
But moving into the future, relative to 5.2.2, anyone could be a community partner. It's not limited to those folks.
Yes.
I'm wondering if similar to Film LA, that's a nonprofit that runs those permits that were very much used to do activities in the river. Yeah, is the county considering that they would permit directly with the county, or would a nonprofit be created to handle all the permits for these types of things to make it easier? And you could answer it briefly so we can get to other questions, like 30 seconds.
Just in a nutshell, I think we looked at the Film LA model and saw how good it is. So I think we definitely look at that. We hope we have that actions to help us get to a framework that can hopefully be as successful as that one.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Marissa, I see other questions. If we could, I know there's people that are asking multiple questions. If we go to someone that hasn't asked one, and then if we have time, we'll circle with the other ones.
Yeah, so I want to address this question from Edlin because there was another person that sort of had a follow-up with it. And so she's asking, this is Edlin Lopez, I'm wondering why the county has not invested as many resources into cultural asset mapping over the last decade in the Southeast region. After reviewing the culture and resources section of the master plan, the Southeast region shows a massive disparity between the data used to talk about these communities and the reality of the Southeast. What steps are being taken? What resources will be invested by the county to paint a more accurate picture of the Southeast? And I know that Tiffany below, as a follow-up to this question, asked what entities have been identified, if any, as of yet, to deepen the asset mapping process for arts and culture along the river in SELA. So very specific to what is asset mapping going to look like in the future in SELA? How is it? And yeah.
That's
what about that? What about the asset mapping, Jessica?
Such a great question, and brilliant. I could not agree more with everything that Edlin said, and I'm sure that everyone on the call from the county, I know we also have members of arts and culture on the line as well tonight. So one thing, if you really want to nerd out over this, page 61 in the master plan identifies specifically arts and culture asset mapping as a data set that is lacking currently across LA County. So the fact that that's behind a little bit is known, and it's also not consistent. Some areas like the city of LA has moved forward fairly farther in terms of some of that mapping. And so there's currently a couple of different pilot projects that are going through different processes to try to get moving forward relative to correcting that. And the other thing I'll say about the master plan, the way it's set up, the data method is meant to actually be flexible enough that as new data becomes available, it can be replaced in the plan. So we don't have to be locked into, I think the comment here says some of these asset sectors were done in the 80s. We're not locked into that for the next 25 years just because that was the data set available in 2018. But as that asset mapping, which is identified in Goal 5 as a priority for the county, as that moves forward, and that new data becomes available, the goal-driven database framework of the master plan allows it to then be infused. Because it's absolutely true. The way that the asset mapping is currently structured does not adequately demonstrate the assets that some neighborhoods have. And that's something that has been identified and wants to move forward. And I will say, if people on the call are really interested in having, and have comments on that, I think the county would really welcome those. Please go into the comment thing and say, these are really important things about when that asset mapping is being updated and happening that need to be included. Everything from food culture to local artists and what's locally culturally significant is really critical in that sort of process.
Thank you, Marissa. We're at 7:23, so probably about maybe 2 more questions.
I want to try and merge a couple of questions that are touching on the same topic here from Glenna and Joel. They're asking about plans to provide much needed spaces for small arts organizations to operate and offer free programs for the community at some or all of the LA River sites. And tied into that is the question of funding, of course. And so Joel is asking, with similar initiatives around the county, it's often the larger nonprofits that are able to leverage this access and get grants. And so how will smaller projects, perhaps those that might not even be backed by a CDO, be able to get to be able to be supported financially?
Yeah, who's that? Is that you again, Jessica? Mark, do you have any insights on this?
These are great questions. So the need for space for local artists is something that has been strongly recognized as along the river as a goal. And so there are pieces. I know we're talking a lot about goal 5 today, but I'm also going to mention goal 7 for a second, which is really about community engagement and education. And there are pieces in 5 and 7 that are really about collaborating with local artists and creating that space for things to happen. So it's certainly in that aspiration. I think there's even discussion of like, could there be residencies or other things that tie to the 51-mile arts corridor as opportunities for artists. It's one of the planned major projects referenced in the master plan is what's happening at like the SELA Cultural Center. And what the RMC is currently working on there is to actually develop that type of space. So I think that could be an interesting project precedent potentially for how do some spaces along the river start to be really formed with that in mind, that the development and creation for local artists could have a space. And I think there are a couple of projects along the river that are planned or underway right now that are really piloting that and could be very exciting. So yes, we need more of it. We want it. Then the funding question is a great one. If you look in the back of the master plan, sorry, this is like the nerdy part of me now, but you can go into the implementation matrix and each of the actions of the plan, I think it's in chapter 14, gets tied to potential funding streams. Some of those things that exist are things like the Percent for Art program and other potential sources through whether it's the county or other localities are there. And then there's also a funding chapter that's about identifying additional sources. And I think that's chapter 13 in the plan. So if you wanted to dig into that, but we would certainly love to hear comments or ideas for other funding strategies and partnerships that could be referenced in the plan to really move actions forward.
And then one quick mention, leveraging all those funding sources that we've identified will be much more facilitated and streamlined by having it inputted into the checklist and the planning early on that Mark Hanna had described earlier. So if it's thought about from the very beginning, I think those partnerships and the syncing up of all those efforts will really help.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Genevieve. We have time for one more question. I do want to say that if we don't get to all your questions, what we could do is, as part of the follow-up post meeting, we can share certainly the presentations that were done today, the slides. We'll see how the video comes out. If it doesn't come out the best, we'll share at a minimum the audio of it. So we will share something. Hopefully the video works out well. And so we'll follow up and also answer some of the questions that didn't get addressed today. They all matter. There's some good questions about participation with schools, funding, how do CBOs play a role? How do they compete? So they're all good questions. But Marissa, I'm gonna put the pressure on you to ask the last question. So sorry, this falls on you.
Okay, well, I think this would be good for our participants to address Jonathan's question about what are going to be the next steps to make sure that communities will continue to be involved and heard in this public comment process, but then what's going to happen, I think also what's going to happen after that public comment, what is the plan there?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I will jump in here. And first off, it's getting out and getting the word out and sharing and making presentations like this. So the county and our team are happy to, now with our extended comment period, we're happy to get out there and give presentations like these and talk one-on-one with folks who are interested in digging in more. And, even if it's more about focused, wanting information about focused topics. I will share with everyone here, just, stay tuned, sign up for notifications. If there are other community outreach engagement events that are held, please, we will notify, everyone who is getting those calls as soon as possible so that there will be more opportunities to get more information. Once the comment period closes, you know, our team will look at everything and really line by line thoughtfully make sure we are addressing and or have adequately addressed and make sure the plan thoughtfully is incorporating and looking at everything. And hopefully, you know, there will be some follow-up and we can maybe circle back with a group like this after we've actually looked at all the comments and maybe talk about what tweaks or adjustments or things that we heard and hopefully how we've appropriately incorporated or addressed or followed up on those. And, you know, I think we want to make sure that everybody feels like that they are heard and that we are being transparent about how, you know, things in the plan are changing or addressing or shifting in response. Because I think, like it was mentioned earlier, this master plan is really meant, you know, to be a tool that the community can use going forward. So once it's adopted, we don't want it to sit on a shelf and not be referenced and used. And our team is, you know, kind of tabbed in and we're useful, but we want everyone else in the community to be really familiar and know where to go and have it be easy and usable. And so hopefully this public comment period is helping folks get through it and will let us know what things we can do to make it that kind of a tool for, you know, folks to use over the next, like 25 years is what we're hoping this will be used for, to help make those improvements along the river that will make it an amenity, you know, for the region, because the community deserves it.
Thank you, Genevieve. And if someone, briefly, if someone wanted to, a group of folks wanted a presentation similar to this one, how do they request that?
Yes, they can email our team at lariver@dpw.lacounty.gov. And we'll share.
Can we put that in the chat, or can someone put that in the chat so that we can share it? Thank
Can you
you.
repeat that, Genevieve? It was a little fast for you.
Sorry, lariver@dpw.lacounty.gov.
Good. Thank you, Genevieve. And again, you know, Danny, we see you. Investments in youth is important. Vicky, we hear you. How does the plan address pollution? And so we will, as I said, we will take these questions offline and answer these, some of these in the email follow-up with the presentations and everything. So you are heard, you are seen, and we'll get to those. As we are coming to a close, I want to thank the speaker for hosting us. Marissa, Donnelly, Dakota, Genevieve, Carolina, Jessica, Mark, thank you for participating, for presenting. Behind the scenes, Christine, Diana, and Kiara, thank you so much for your work. Languages for you, for your interpretation tonight. And of course, to all of you, all the attendees who took time tonight, your interest is shown. I hope, again, that you are motivated to send your comments in as individuals, as collectives, as nonprofits, as CBOs, and send in as many comments as you'd like. You know, get others to comment as well. I would advise that you get people to use the portal. So there's that process, or send a letter as well to the same email. But you know, there's a portal that was made available. You know, I would say use it. It's not that difficult, and you can use it as many times as you like. With that, I want to thank all of you for participating, and I hope you have a great evening. Hope to see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.